Mountains out of a molehill, eh? Just regurgitating content, the same ideas recycled over and over and over again. Hey man, if the mainstream media can go out there and conduct interviews and get comments and repeat some of the same stories out there, then why can't I do that here on YouTube? Oh yeah, right, I can. It's my show, and I can make videos on whatever I want. That's crazy. Wow, crazy how that concept works. Either way, in this video, we are recycling the same conversation that we have had multiple times throughout the past few weeks. Ever since the Boston Bruins had signed Vancouver Canucks former defenseman Nikita Zadorov, we had been making videos going over his comments, speaking out about the transaction to Boston, how he feels about leaving Vancouver, and all the stuff that he had felt about the Elias Lindholm situation. There's a lot going on here ever since the Bs signed the Zs. And in today's video, I wanted to take a look at another interview, this time on, what is this, rg.org? It's responsiblegambling.org. I don't really understand how this is like a Boston Bruins journalistic platform, but they posted an article the other day talking about how new defenseman Nikita Zadorov wants the cup and not money with the Boston Bruins. This, of course, is a Big Z interview, and it goes over a few interesting perspectives that I think apply to Vancouver Canucks fans who are trying to understand where everything is coming from. Take a look at how this article goes out there and starts. Money is great, but I want to win, declares Nikita Zadorov, the Boston Bruins' latest defensive acquisition. In an exclusive interview with RG.org, the 29-year-old defenseman did not mince words about his priorities, setting the tone for what promises to be an intriguing chapter in his career. Now, speaking about money, if you needed the update here, Big Z, or not Big Z, he doesn't want to be called that anymore because Big Z's kind of affiliated with somebody else in Boston Bruins lore, signed a 6-year contract worth $5 million AAV. It goes on till 2031. He's 29 years old right now, so this deal goes on till he's 35. Whether or not he'll be a $5 million defenseman for that time remains to be seen, but for now, this is the contract that we have at our hands. The Boston Bruins signed it, Nikita Zadorov's happy with it, but in this article he goes out there and talks about the process in getting this done. The Bruins were the best option, Zadorov said, in both terms of hockey, which is always a priority, and family. Despite offers from other teams, including the Canucks and the Avalanche, Zadorov chose Boston for its winning potential. Interesting to note that he talks about how the Bruins were the best option in terms of performance on the ice and his family. I mean, not to say that Vancouver wasn't that necessarily. In fact, he goes out there and highlights his thoughts on the Vancouver Canucks in the next paragraph. Interestingly enough, Zadorov revealed that the Vancouver Canucks were his first choice. However, contract negotiations hit a snag. We disagreed on the details before the Stanley Cup Playoffs and postponed the negotiations, Zadorov said. After the playoffs, when I was in Vancouver, we tried to reach an agreement, but unfortunately, it didn't work. And this is another chapter in the Zadorov Vancouver Canucks lore, because when you think about how this timeline maps out, how this timeline coincides with what we understood about Zadorov as Canucks fans, if the Vancouver Canucks and Nikita Zadorov were already disagreeing on contract terms before the playoffs began, then there was no way in hell that this guy was going to re-sign in Vancouver. The Canucks already had themselves a set identity in mind as to what Zadorov was at the end of the regular season, and if he was already saying, no, sorry, I can't go that low, or I don't want to go that short, then Zadorov did himself absolutely no favors by having the crazy playoff run that he had. If his main goal was to stay in Vancouver and already he could not agree with the Canucks on a deal, then being amazing in the playoffs just made things worse. Because all of a sudden the Canucks are like, okay, well darn it, like we're not going to be able to get you to sign to our number anymore or anywhere close to that because you're like really good. And then there was the entire quandary as to whether or not if you sign Zadorov to a certain amount of term and money, are you getting the playoff version of Zadorov for 82 games next season, or are you only getting that version of Zadorov in the playoffs? Because sure, it's very valuable to have a guy like that in the playoffs, but if you're paying him that amount of money to be that good in the playoffs, then you have to start questioning where's the rest of the value coming in the 82 games that precede that postseason. So it was an interesting philosophical quandary for sure, but Zadorov going out there and confirming pretty much that we already disagreed with Vancouver on those details before the playoffs. There was no way he was going to be able to get anything done after the playoffs. He would have wanted a lot more. The Canucks maybe would have been willing to budge a little bit higher, but it just was not enough. And the Canucks didn't want to shell out $5 million for a guy who would be technically a third pairing defenseman. Patrick Allvin said it best. He cannot overpay for anybody. That's it. The article then goes out there and says that the 23-24 season saw Zadorov split time between Vancouver and Calgary, tallying 6 goals and 14 assists in 75 games. His trade from Vancouver to Calgary, or from the other way around, from Calgary to Vancouver on November 30th, 2023, came after he had reportedly requested a trade earlier that month. Before the last season started, I made it clear to the management that I wanted to stay, Zadorov explained about his time in Calgary, but in the end, all the other players received offers except me. After the season's bumpy start, we realized that waiting until the trade deadline was pointless. We had to act quickly. And if you remember, we made the videos and talked about the updates on Zadorov. His trade request was very public, and it was a really big deal. That video, I remember it was like, when was it? Like November-ish, something like that, and then it was also at like 20-something views. It was pretty good. Yeah, I think that was a pretty big turning point for my YouTube channel in 2023, but either way, Nikita Zadorov requested a trade shortly after he was traded to Vancouver. Then he had the run that he had. He was fantastic in the playoffs like he was, and now he is in Boston. To end off this video, let's go out there and take a look at some of the comments that Zadorov made in regards to the Bruins and the transition over there. The Bruins welcomed us very nicely, Zadorov said. Our main intention was to find a new home and school for children. We did that. I also attended a practice and met the GM, head coach, staff, and some other players. Interestingly enough, this article goes out there and has a little section about the Canadian hockey culture. I got a little bit of a kick out of this. I want to see if you do as well. This is what the article introduces the subject as: playoff battles and Canadian hockey culture. Zadorov's playoff experience with the Canucks, especially against the Oilers, provided some of the most talked about moments of his career. His physical play against Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl became highlight reel material. The quote from Zadorov says this: "In Canada, fans love hockey. For them, it's a religion, a way of life. They might not like you, but they understand you're just doing your job. I don't think they hated me. Yes, I made some comments about Edmonton, and everyone understood it was just fun and friendly banter." Yeah, everybody understood, right? Not unless you're going out there on social media like Twitter and seeing what some of the weird things are that people had to say about that. Yeah, it's kind of funny, but either way, I do think there was a lot of meme material and good things to go off of with Nikita Zadorov and his comments about the Oilers. This really is, though, just a guy who is a pretty talkative, likable guy, making his presence known in his brand new team. And the Bruins will see that for the next 6 years. So you better buckle up, because when it's good, it's really good. When it's bad, though, like in Calgary, I don't know. We'll see what happens down the line if it ever does get to that point. So, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Nikita Zadorov explaining what went wrong with the Vancouver Canucks and how everything is shaping up in Boston nowadays. Thoughts in the comment section. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.